From the land of sky blue waters, welcome to the Sota Pod. Isha here, and I will be joined by Seth Toupal momentarily. And I thank you all for joining wherever and whenever you are listening on this Canada Day NHL free agent frenzy. Now, I just want to say, as we are dropping this podcast, there are already some free agents who we talked about in the podcast who have already been signed. Jake Gensel is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sam Reinhart is back with the Florida Panthers. And Chris Tanev with the Toronto Maple Leafs. A surprise, surprise, surprise on all those fronts. But other than that, nothing else has been spoiled from our predictions from our show here today. Seth and I talk about the National Hockey League draft, specifically the Minnesota Wild's selections. We give our predictions for some of the big names in free agency, not necessarily the term or where they're going with their contracts, but the AAV, as well as a couple other things in the world of the National Hockey League. So we don't have a Hoppy Hour here today. We have an hour and a half of non-stop hockey talk. We'll bring back the Hoppy Hour next week, and we'll dive into some of the beers that I dove into during 4th of July weekend, during this last weekend of covering the draft. Before we get into the hockey talk, though, I just want to give a big shout out to our friends at Northland Vodka. Go check out Northland Vodka. They helped fuel the Soda Stream draft show as well, and thank you all for joining us on our draft show last Friday. It was a lot of fun, and big shout out to all of our friends who were there as well. Northland Vodka, a great local company, great people. Mark Parrish has the best vodka recipe on the planet, so make sure you pick up a handle or a bottle for this 4th of July, ladies and gentlemen. A percentage of all sales go back into the community, go back into the local hockey. So what are you waiting for? Go get you some Northland today. Also fueling us throughout our soda stream, fueling the boys, with 7th Avenue Pizza. Guys, 7th Avenue Pizza is the best pizza on the planet. Yes, it's a frozen pizza that's better than most, if not all, pizzas at restaurants, all pies that you're ordering here in Minnesota. Great people, amazing recipe. The gang are so interactive on social media as well. So if you have any questions for them, if you want to know where you can pick some up, if you can't find it at your local grocery store, hit up Matt and the crew at 7th Ave Pizza on social media. They will hit you up immediately. Great people, amazing product. Go throw that Domino's in the garbage. It's not worth your time. Why do that to your body, especially when you have 7th Avenue Pizza at your disposal? Jerry Foods, you can find them right now at $7.99. You can find a few at Hy-Vee for $6.99, ladies and gentlemen. Lunds and Byerly and more. If your grocery store doesn't carry 7th Avenue Pizza, hit up 7th Ave. Ask them why. Ask your grocery store why they don't have the best damn pizza in Minnesota on the shelves. 7th Ave Pizza, they're doing a bunch of appearances at local events this summer as well, so follow them on social media and go pick you up one today. 7th Avenue Pizza, a proud supporter of the Sota Pod. Without further ado, let's get into some hockey talk. And we are back with Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild. At the end of a crazy weekend in the National Hockey League, that is the 2024 NHL Draft wrapped up Saturday afternoon. We held our draft party on Friday. We had coverage on Saturday, and the Wild come out on top again, Seth. And we're going to dive into that first here. But first and foremost, how are you, and how was your draft weekend?
Draft weekend was fun. It was fun to, this is something Michael Russo talked about. It just was fun to see buzz generated by what the Minnesota Wild did. Like, we obviously all were amped in the draft stream, but you know, it just goes to show you that how quickly things can change. You know, last year there was a little bit of kind of confusion about the first round pick for the Minnesota Wild. This year, it was pretty much wholesale, and not just like approval of the pick, but excitement. Yeah. Like they really knocked it out of the park, and you go all the way down. You go all the way through every pick that the Minnesota Wild made. A lot of really, really good selections, and depending on who you ask, 3 players ranked in the top 30 of the overall draft. That's That's impressive.
No, absolutely. So we're going to start off here just talking a little bit about the Wild draft picks. Now, obviously, like, I ain't no draft expert, but I have some just personal notes and my just thoughts and reactions on their picks. Then we'll move on to prime a little bit free agency. As you guys are listening to this now, it is free agent frenzy, and it actually blew my mind how many like really good UFAs are out there at the top of free agency. And like, honestly, like, there are 50 really good names, 50 good UFA names that obviously quite a few of them will likely re-sign with their team. They might just test the water for a bit, but will probably go back to their team. But I have 30 here that we're just going to go through an exercise where I just name them and we give a projection on how much their AAV will be. And then we will also end off the show with just a little bit of wild news that just broke here. But let's start with the draft. Obviously, in the first round, 12th overall, the Wild move up a spot, only giving up a third-round pick to do so, to get their guy out of the University of Denver, Aziv Boyum. I mean, amazing rookie year, best skater on that Denver squad, over point per game in his first year as well, NCAA national champion. And like I said, the Wild didn't give up pretty much anything in the grand, like in hindsight, in the grand scheme of things, however you want to coin it, to get their guy. Obviously, those who watched our draft show saw our reaction. Those of you who are on social media, those of you who interact on various YouTube channels, I mean, nothing but positivity for this pick from the Wild fan base and the just hockey fans at large.
Yeah, it was so much fun because it was one of those, like, in all the prep that I did for the draft, that was not a scenario that existed at any point, having Zeev be available. I think in my mock war room that I did before the draft, the 3 different scenarios that we really dove into, I think Boyum went 4th, 5th, and 6th. So that tells you right there, even at 6th, still 7 picks ahead of where the Minnesota Wild were drafting. And so it's not even on your radar at that point. And we were keeping an eye on it as it happened. It was obvious Macklin Celebrini was going first. Second round or second pick overall, pretty locked in as well. There started to be some chatter on draft day that things could start to really turn at pick 3. And what happened? Yeah. The Ducks made kind of they made a surprise pick. And that just, everybody just kind of slotted their order down a little bit after that. Like, a couple of forwards go at 4 and 5. Then there's a little bit of a run on defense. And, you know, my overall belief is I've seen some people wonder why they traded up one spot when it came out later. And let's be honest, the only reason that Philly was saying the stuff that they did is because they didn't pick Boyum.
Yeah.
Is because there were so many people that were asking, Why didn't you go with Zeev? That's the only reason that they came out with it's because we wanted to have bigger defensemen in our draft pool and
a center. They were drafting for need because the Flyers need a top center and they're banking on this kid panning out, which, like, I understand, but when you got the best player available, it doesn't matter what position you go for. Man, I mean, this is a textbook scenario of when prospects rise the way they do on the draft board, others just have to fall, right? With Seneke going 3, with Tij going 6, like a few players were going to drop, and the 2 big notable ones were Salayev and Boyum right into the Wild's pocket. In the second round, the Minnesota Wild got Ryder Ritchie at with the 45th pick. He's a right winger. Man, he's super young, 17 years of age right now. He's an all-around winger who can, with scoring ability, right? Toughest junior league to play in is the WHL, and that's where he plays in. And again, still relatively young on that team. Good showing in his first playoff appearance as well. And there's just still lots of time for him to develop. So He is playing in Prince Albert. It was his second season with the Prince Albert Raiders. He played 5 playoff games this year, 7 points, 3 goals, had 19 goals in 47 games this year, at 20 goals in 61 games last year. So like people may look at this quickly and be like, oh, not a huge improvement. Well, he played like 13 less games, a handful of less games, and he was right there points wise as well on a team that didn't give him top minutes, as there were some older guys on that team who were the primary goal scorers, who were the primary option. So I really like this guy. He's going to get an elevated role next year, whether he plays 1 or 2 more years in junior. That's fine by me. I like them going with Ryder Ritchie here.
Well, and the big thing, Isha, that was mentioned as kind of his like main skill is his hands, which is super intriguing too. Like he's just great with stick handling and with making things happen. And I had been banging the table for the Wild to target players that could bring some of that playmaking and that shot ability. And so you get, depending on who you ask, you get arguably the first or second best defenseman prospect in the entire draft. And you get a guy who had a first-round grade with your second-round pick, and all it cost you, and the 2025 third-round pick, like, keep this in mind, too, for the people who are like, I don't know, a third-round pick could turn into something. The Wild have, like, 12 picks in 2026. So if they want to make some moves, they stockpiled those picks for trades, for moving around in the draft, whatever they need to do. They've got a lot of assets in 2026, so they can easily recoup that. They could even get that back depending on how this year plays out. So any price to jump up and get your guy, any price is worth it.
No, absolutely. And in the 4th round, because I didn't have a 3rd round pick, in the 4th round, the Minnesota Wild, man, are able to get their guy because of a trade that they actually made, which is absolutely crazy how things kind of flopped there. So they got Boston's 4th round pick in the draft, trading their 4th round pick and Vinny Lettieri. They also got Jacob Loco, a depth player he's probably not going to see NHL ice, but they got Vinny Lettieri, they sent Vinny Lettieri back to Boston to essentially get the better pick that they wanted in this draft. So a little Yankee swap there, a little bit of musical chairs, but strategic musical chairs there by the Wild brass, and they get arguably the steal of the draft.
Yeah,
and I say that outside of the 1st round, because William's going to be that guy, but they get a guy who was ranked as high as like late 20s, even in the 30s,
25th, I think I saw.
Yeah, in some mock drafts, in some scouting reports, they get Aaron Kiviharu, a defenseman out of Denmark, but playing in the Finnish Liga. What an incredible pick here at 122. He's already playing pro, very solid defenseman. This is one of the biggest steals in the draft here because his floor is already so high. Whereas even if he doesn't reach the projected ceiling, he could still play pro sooner than maybe a lot of these guys that the Minnesota Wild have drafted recently. He's 18 years old right now. And yeah, he won't need too much more time to develop. Now, that's me knocking on wood here, but he's not as big of a project as some of these guys, even that the Wild have drafted last year, for example.
Well, and some of the things that really intrigued me here, extremely, they went out of their way to talk about how high of a hockey IQ he had, a very cerebral player. And, we think about the guys that have that high IQ on this Minnesota Wild team. Kirill Kaprizov for one. But you even on defense, you go Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin. And so somebody who has that ability to see the ice that way on defense, that intrigues me, because we talked about it most of the season in just not having a ton of defensemen with the ability to step up and help out offensively. And so you add playmakers on offense, and you add a couple of defensemen right off the bat that see the ice very well. That's a good 1-2 combo.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I will even say that the Wild have maybe gone more of the offensive defenseman route, like gone in drafting recently, have gone more with the skilled defensemen who have a higher ceiling of offensive production versus one who can see the ice and just play defense first and foremost better than them controlling the offense or setting up the offense. And we're seeing that in Iowa right now, like with some of these guys who they drafted with the intention of them maybe being like 30 to 40 point guys in the NHL. Well, Kiviharu could very well be that, but from what I've seen of his game right now in pro, in a low scoring league in Liga with, you know, limited minutes compared to some of his counterparts there, he's very much like, I am defensive steady right now, which is awesome. And their first pick in the 5th round in Sebastian Swoney, kind of the same thing, a right shot defenseman who does have skill. But he's very much a defensive first guy. He's good at making the first pass. Now, I actually think his passing was really, really good. More of a project than Kiviharu for sure, but he finds open ice well. His passing and his vision is great. He's defensively aware, and he's got good gaps as well. Like whenever there's a player coming down the wing or there's a turnover, like he is on them like glue, doesn't give a lot of space for them to get around him. And his defensively at the level that he's playing at right now, he's very sound. Now I know Liga loaned him to a lower league to get him some more playing time and some playoff experience, and he did awesome. Again, didn't put up a lot of points, but he's a defenseman. I'm glad that the Wild are going this route in this draft, especially since they have Zeev Buium, they have prospects in Iowa who are good puck movers on the back end. These European guys, these guys coming out of the Finnish Liga who are solid in defense right now and can only get better in the offensive side of things. I'm very happy with this pick as well.
Certified boomstick from a hits perspective. This dude, I love the fact that one of the first highlights that I saw of him was putting somebody through the ice, like with that hard of a hit. And he's got size. He knows how to use it. And so perfect complement. You know, you get two defensemen who are maybe a little on the smaller side, but bring a lot of those intangibles. This dude he does not mind hitting people. And so that's the perfect complement to add into that mix.
And he looked awesome at some of the U18 competitions, especially some of the ones that they had, like a Finland versus Sweden series. I think it was last year. And he was awesome. He's one of the best players on the ice. Again, not super loud, but like one of those guys where like the first thing I noted was like finds open ice and his gap control is stupid good. Like every turnover that Finland had, that Sweden got the puck and like circled back, he was already on whoever was coming over the blue line or going over center and crowding the neutral zone, which I really liked about him. Also in the 5th round, the Minnesota Wild get a goalie in this draft, a young goalie, a 17-year-old who has only played like half a season in the WHL. I guess you could say he's played his first year in the WHL, but he is fresh off minor hockey in one of the better minor hockey developmental leagues in Canada in Saskatchewan. He's played 36 games this last year in the WHL with the Red Deer Rebels. And before then, just like I said, was dominating in minor hockey in the U18 minor hockey program in Saskatchewan. They get Chase Wutzke. So young, and he's already putting up great numbers on a bad team in Red Deer. Absolutely torching his final year of U18 minor hockey, and actually did well overall in the WHL playoffs too, where he played 7 games this last season. Now, Red Deer wasn't expected to do anything special, and the fact that they put this 17-year-old, first-year WHL guy coming off of U18 competition this same year, dude, he delivered. He delivered over 90 save percentage. I think he was 91 in the playoffs in those 7 games. And in his WHL run, he was just over 90 as well. 2.8 goals against average, which was the highest on the 2 other goalies that would come into the mix as well. But again, he was 17. He's 17 years of age. So yeah, he's going to be in the dub for at least another 3 years before he even sniffs an opportunity at pro. And when I talk about pro, I mean, he might go like ECHL even before AHL, but glad that the Wild got a goalie. It's always good to continue to fill the pipeline with some talent, especially one who showed that he can play with the big boys in the WHL and put up some good numbers right off minor hockey, because that's a huge step into the best CHL league.
Yeah, and we talked about this leading up to the draft, is with Jesper expected to, depending on what happens with Philip Gustafsson, with Jesper expected to at the least be full-time NHL after this upcoming season, there's a need in the organization for goalies. And so the fact that they pick one up and they can allow him to mature a little bit before joining the system, I was very in favor of it this year, and I'm excited to see what he adds as he starts to get more acclimated with playing consistently.
Yeah, because I mean, you can always find stopgap goaltenders for your AHL team, for your ECHL team, but you want to get young guys who you can develop and maybe find that diamond in a rough, right? And in the fifth round, I mean, at that point, that's where you should find these project goalies. That's where you should select these project goalies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem at all to just take a chance on a guy and see if he pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the last pick in the draft, which is arguably my favorite pick, in the 6th round at 174, the Minnesota Wild select Stevie Leskovar, ladies and gentlemen. Let's fucking go, Leskovar. Like I said, easily my favorite pick. My tongue is firmly planted in cheek there, but you guys know how I like the big boys who can fight. He will likely play one more year of junior. He's 19 years of age. I mean, shoot, he might even play another year as an overager as well, because he doesn't bring the nasty hands. He doesn't bring the good shot. He's actually pretty good at skating for a big boy, standing 6'4", weighing over 210 pounds. So he's one of those that a junior hockey team will probably keep until they can't, and then we'll see how he does in the AHL, or again, maybe even the ECHL. But he's a big, aggressive defenseman who actually can skate. He's not super quick, but he has some decent ability there on the ice. He's a good fighter. He's loved by his teammates. He's a character and glue guy. And it's funny, he played the last 2 seasons. This year, the full season, he was traded to Mississauga, the Mississauga Steelheads in 2022-2023. So he split time playing for the Peterborough Petes and Mississauga. And as soon as he got to Mississauga, Mississauga's YouTube channel, all social media, he was part of everything, because he's just that much of a character, and just, like I said, loved by the team and his teammates, because he's just that type of player. He knows that, if I'm going to get an opportunity to play, I have to play a certain way. He got 113 penalty minutes this year, only put up 12 points, 2 goals in 61 games. He did play 4 playoff games this year for the Steelheads. He played 5 last year as well. He only recorded 1 point last year and no points this year. But Seth, this is why they picked him. Boom, bitch.
Oh my heavens.
And then let's just start throwing hands here.
See, this is intriguing.
Go.
This is intriguing. A defenseman who shoots, he had 96 shots in 61 games. So he's not afraid to...
he's got a clapper. He's not
afraid to let it rip. And he's also not afraid to just put somebody in the ground. Another one. Yeah, this guy's a maniac.
Dude, I love it. And yeah, he's a man amongst boys right now. But again, one more year junior. He knows his role. And this is the kind of guy that the NHL clubs will at least give a chance in the minors and be like, okay, if you can stay up to speed in the AHL, we'll keep you here and continue to do your thing. And maybe he carves a path for himself as I don't even want to just say enforcer, but an energy player down the road if needed, right? I mean,
yeah,
Matt Rempe, he was able to carve that as well. Now, a little bit more skilled than this kid, for sure. But even if this kid just becomes a staple in the AHL, who maybe the Wild someday call up just for that fear factor in important games, hey, I'm okay with that, but I will have a blast watching him play his next year in junior, as well as I will keep tabs, and I'm very excited to see his opportunity at the pros, whether it's the ECHL or the AHL. I love these type of players as they're few and far between these days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This one will be intriguing to see. You know, I'm going to be intrigued to see if he adds a little more offense to his mix, because if you can get somebody that can score you a few goals, but also hits that hard as a defenseman, that's intriguing.
And you know what else is interesting about this kid is he's the fucking synthetic ice kid. Now, Seth, you might be going like, what? So when synthetic ice for essentially like parents, coaches, and I don't even want to say teams like developing players, but let's just say minor hockey development. When the boom of synthetic ice happened, an early YouTube video of a father putting out a video of his son practicing on synthetic ice in his sick garage setup here was that of Stevie Leskovar. So when I was looking up just some of his highlights, I was like, no way, this is the kid 12 years ago that I saw on YouTube when I was looking up, you know, synthetic ice and the boom of this new company that was developing it. No joke, Seth. I watched this video 12 fucking years ago, and this is him. This is little Stevie Leskovar. It's funny because I messaged a buddy of mine too, and I was like, you remember this video? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, the Wild just drafted him. He's like, get out of here.
How about that?
So just a little bit of hockey lore there from, you know, the hardcore crazy people like me. Because not gonna lie, 10 years ago when that boom happened, Seth, I looked up like how much it would cost to get a chunk of it. And like me and a friend were thinking about going into business together, and literally, you know, especially in Canada, like getting ice is ridiculous. Now in Minnesota, it's still hard to get ice, but there's so much of it that like smaller leagues, beer leagues, I mean, they can make do. Like my friend's playing right now at 4 p.m. on a Sunday, and they were able to get ice, which again in Canada unheard of for anything that's not like a high level minor league. If you're playing beer league, it's 1 a.m. midnight earliest, right? So me and my friend were actually talking about maybe going into business, and putting together a smaller rink, but maybe a couple small synthetic ice rinks in a facility that we could find, and then just like renting them out, mostly for like skills developments, birthday parties, you know, pickup games, that kind of thing. Yeah, we saw how much it costs per square footage, and we're like, oh yeah, we're not going to make our money back for the next 10 years, especially with this coming out now. So we kind of put that on the shelf. But that's one of the reasons why and how I found that video, is because we were just looking up a lot of videos at that time of people like reviewing them and seeing how good it was compared to actual ice. And yeah, there he is. Little Stevie Leskovar was one of those videos. I think it only still has like 500 or 600 views on it, but it's just, yeah. I just had to bring that up because like I cannot believe, you know, it was small hockey world that like I literally watched this video like 12 years ago, and I was looking up synthetic ice, and there's the kid doing skating around.
Absolutely iconic.
Yeah. So overall, Seth, what do you grade this year's draft compared to last year? I think last year everyone gave it what, a B+, A-.
Yeah.
Mostly just because, you know, you maybe reached for Stramo, but you got Riley Heidt in the second round, so he basically counts as your first round pick, and then the rest of the draft, I mean, yet to be seen, but some good names there as well.
Yeah, I think they just, those first 3 picks especially, not that the others weren't good, but I think in those 3 first picks, just a ton of value. Like Scott Wheeler mentioned the Wild as one of his winners from the draft overall. And so I would have to say A. I would have to give them an A for just letting the board kind of play out. Like they had Zeev Buium go to them, which is incredible, but you know, they just added talent and you know, spent some of those later round picks, maybe adding a little bit of the size.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good balance, and you know, it just felt like they kind of had a plan and stuck to it. Even after Zeev Buium fell to them.
Yeah, and I know it's a little bit of recency bias because everyone, for the most part, we're on social media, the fans, and even some hockey writers have been really saying that like this year the Wild this year's draft was better than last year's draft. And I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Yes, getting Zeev might have elevated them just a little bit higher there. And okay, I want to see what Ryder Ritchie does, as an 18-year-old now, in his third year, because maybe he could just take a huge step forward. In hindsight's 2020. I mean, I was looking at Riley Heidt as a very good prospect. Obviously now with the season that he just had, it's like, okay, like this guy's, he might be NHL ready. But look at what they got last year. I mean, Stramel, there's still a question mark, but he still might be a good player. You got Rasmus Kumpalainen, who's awesome. You got Riley Heidt, who's right there. Aaron Pionk, who's very good, was on a horrendous college team this year in Duluth, but if they get their shit together, he's still a very talented defenseman. Kalen Parker, who, if I'm not mistaken, won the WHL season with the Moose Jaw Warriors. And, Jimmy Clark, who's still a project with the University of Minnesota, only had 11 points this year. Didn't have the biggest role, but I still think we cannot just turn our backs to last year's draft. I think last year's draft might have been one of Judd Brackett's best years. And then you look at the year before that, you got Ugrin, Yurov, Hunter Haight, Rieger, Lorenz. It's just crazy. The last 3 years, the Minnesota Wild have absolutely dominated, man. Absolutely dominated. And you go back to 2021 and 2020 as well. They're in such good shape. Because 2020, Rossi, Huznadinov, and again, Ryan O'Rourke, Damon Hunt, not necessarily there yet, but they're in the AHL. You look at 2021. You got Wallstad, who's almost NHL already. Carson Lambos, who's still a project. Caden Bankier, Kyle Masters. These are guys who are okay. They're almost there. They're almost there, and questions will be answered sooner than later. 2022, I said it. Danila Yurov, when he comes over, he's ready. Regal Lorenz was awesome in college as well. Zimbuev's teammate. And then 2023, I just mentioned some of the names there, and this year was Zimbuev and Richie and Kiviharu, which were absolute amazing picks as well. So it's just amazing to see that pretty much every year, Seth, I'm giving them an A.
Yeah. And I think this is where Bill Guerin's got to be given credit to, because it's not easy, especially when you're a GM and you just want to have your hands in everything. It's not easy to entrust somebody with handling the draft and saying, it's your thing. I'm not going to get super involved unless you want to trade up to go get somebody. That's not easy, to not be as active in it, but he has been adamant about that.
When he's been hands off too, it's not like he's scouting in his spare time. He probably goes to a game or two here and there. He takes his meeting with Judd and his scouting team. But unlike some general managers who came from a scouting background into front office, Billy Guerin, since he's been with the Minnesota Wild, has been hands off for a reason. He knows that this is not his lane. Obviously he has the final say, so to speak, but him and Judd are a team here. Judd is leading the charge here. Judd has no interest in being a general manager at this point. He's just head of scouting. He was head of scouting in Vancouver. He's head of scouting in Minnesota, and proof's in the pudding, man. Look what he did with Vancouver. Look what he's doing with Minnesota now. It would be foolish for Billy Guerin, or if he does get replaced in the next few years, for that GM to try to mess with what Judd Brackett and his team are doing, because it's clearly producing results.
Well, and we talked about it when we revisited those few draft classes from the early 2000s. Just look at how much better the being able to identify talent has been. Yeah. Over these last few years since Judd took over. We've got maybe one pick that we are second guessing, and the jury's still out on Charlie Stramel, but that's really the only one that comes to my head that's even being questioned since he took over. Every other pick seems like a super solid choice, and within the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of those guys get to the NHL level. And that just furthers it even more. Once those guys start to produce at the NHL level, that just makes them that much better of selections. Yeah,
the big thing here is really getting a good development team in Iowa, because you don't want to bring in this talent and then have it go the wayside, right? And Matt Hendricks, that's a great start, but they need a little bit more, because you don't want this talent to go to waste. And furthermore, And this is, this is out of Judd Brackett's control. He makes the picks. He gets them to Iowa. Then it's up to Billy Guerin and the team to, again, get the development team right there in Iowa and also create goddamn spaces for some of these guys at the NHL level, because we don't want them to, for lack of a better term, rot in Iowa where their confidence might be gone, where we might miss out on them. They go somewhere else and pop, right? And that's the balance of this crazy job as a general manager, right? Winning in the National Hockey League, but also making sure that these guys who you're investing your picks in, your time and development in, get the right development and have the opportunity to show, okay, we've developed them the best that we feel we have. Let's see if they can play. And if they can't, okay. It's some might call it a miss, but they did everything they could. They identified the talent at the time. They did everything they could, in the minors. If they don't work out, then you move on to the next one. But if we don't get those questions answered, that's what's more annoying than anything.
Yep, you are 100% correct, because not every pick is going to hit. Not every pick is going to work out, but you can't just keep pushing it down the road by a year. Like, we're going to get a couple of guys up here. That's going to be all we get. Like at some point, and frustrating too, because I think people see some of these spots in the lineup where you're just not getting any production and are like, you mean to tell me that a young player couldn't potentially, play above their ability level and fill one of those spots? Like, so I think that's what gets most frustrating is
Sammy Walker's 25 now, dude. He's not a prospect anymore.
Like you continue to see the same thing night in, night out, and you're like, there has to be some way we can do better than this. Yeah.
Credit to them. At least they tried to give Adam Beckman more looks than they ever did this year. And they identified, okay, it's just not going to work out here. Fine. Was it enough for my liking? No, but at least it was something. And again, I'm being a little glass half full here, but they need to give some of these guys a little bit more cup of coffee, especially this year. Because like I'm not super butthurt about like a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old not getting too much time. But if they're getting 22, 23, 24, 25, it's like, dude, why are you investing? Why are you still investing in this? And why did you not ruin, but maybe plateau their development?
Yeah, and I think this year, we've seen that in the decisions made to not bring back anybody on the fourth line. To free up those roster spots. Not that you're going to have guys come in and play that spot specifically, but this is what Bill Guerin and John Hines talked about at the end of the season, is that going into this year and beyond, we're starting to get some prospects that are knocking on the door. And if you're a veteran player not pulling your weight on this roster, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
And so best case scenario is that message gets heard and guys, play to the level that they're capable of. And I guess the flip side of that, this would technically be worst case, but it would be good, is that those guys don't get that message and you just start trying to see if some of these prospects are capable of filling that spot. Those spots.
Yeah, for sure. And you alluded to it. Michael Russo dropped this an hour ago. He said the Minnesota Wild didn't qualify offer Mason Shaw, Hunter Jones, Simon Johansson, and Sam Hentage. They'll become UFAs tomorrow. They did qualify offer Declan Chisholm, which he's going to get an elevated role once they pay him. Sammy Walker, Adam Raska, and Graham Clark, which I like all those that they qualified offered. If they don't, so they retain their rights. If they don't sign a deal, they will be RFAs, but they're all likely going to stay with the Wild. I doubt. I mean, there might be like one team out there who might make a little bit of a run on Sammy Walker, and the Wild might just be okay. Whatever, like for the limited compensation that it is in a late pick, like we'll get it, whatever. But no, Chisholm, he's going to be good. That man, what an amazing pickup by the Wild in hindsight now this year.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing about this is, what does all of this, because you've got Declan Chisholm, you got Jake Middleton too, who are now Middleton's been rumored to be getting an extension at some point here soon for a while.
I'm totally fine with, to be honest.
I wonder what happens for both of those two guys with the fact that you've got Zeev Boyum in the mix now, because I mean, his timeline is he's getting the Brock Faber timeline.
He's getting one more year at Denver. Yeah.
Once Denver's season is done, he's going to sign his ELC and he is straight to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like I will be shocked if they don't go that route. And, it's interesting too. Boyum has a ton of experience running a power play. And so that's going to be another area that he can help out with. So it's going to be fascinating to see what this means. I'm going to try to dive into that a little bit this week on Locked On Wild, the D depth.
There's going to be opportunities for defensemen though, because you bring back Middleton, that's fine. Whether he plays second pairing or third pairing, at least you got a veteran there. Like Merrill's not going to be here for much longer. Golgoski's fucking done. Like Bogosian is not going to be around long term. You know what I mean? Like there were a lot of stopgap guys this year, and there might be some next year as well. But there's going to be opportunities for some of these younger guys. Like they like Damon Hunt. Now he's not ready, but like he's going to get opportunities as well soon. So and obviously Brodin's still here, but he was dealing with some injuries. This might be the start of the decline for him as well. So like they need to have some veteran staples there still. Yeah. But this might be the year where like, okay, we got Middleton, we got, Brodin. We don't know what's going on with Spurgeon just yet. Maybe we give some opportunities to young guys and start to look at flipping the page and make sure that we have roster spots available for 2025, 2026 and onward.
Well, and I think that mostly probably means that we see Middleton, maybe not this year, but next year, depending on how things go with Boyum, maybe that slots him down to that third pairing role, and your third pairing is Chisholm and Middleton. Which, how awesome would that be, right? Like that is a perfect, and let's be honest, if you're bringing up some of these prospects and they absolutely hit, those guys could be moved. Yeah, because teams will want to dance. Yeah, you're not going to bring Zeev in and just have him play sheltered third pairing minutes. Like Brock Faber came in and he was immediately paired with Jonas Brodin. Like, yeah, Brock Faber though, he's a different player. Like I have to because he's more of a defensive defenseman, whereas Zeev, like, I'm not saying there's not defensive attributes there. Like he's a defenseman and he's a top defenseman for a reason, but yeah, he's definitely they're going to complement each other, right? Up and whether they play together or not, but it's. Yeah, I like how the defense for the Wild is shaping out, to be honest. Now, I don't like how it's shaping out necessarily for next year, but like the plan is set where they have some veteran pillars. Yeah. They have a plan for when the likes of Brodin and Spurgeon probably sooner than later are going to be gone. So the plan on the back end is a lot more... it makes me feel a lot more comfortable than that up front and like how are they going to play musical chairs up here? Yeah, well, and we're going to see too this year in Iowa. We're going to see those defenseman prospects start to kind of separate. Like you're not going to have a season like they did this past year where all of those guys just struggle because there was really nobody showing them the way to go. Some of those guys are going to start to figure it out and start to push themselves to the top of the list. And so then all of a sudden, you'll have Zeev here, you'll have Faber, you'll have Brodin, you'll have Spurgeon, Middleton, Chisholm. And then if you get somebody that gets hurt, then you'll start to have better options to be able to fill in for them. Yeah. Yeah. And some who are just not panning out. I mean, those are the ones you package for replacement players, for picks, etc., because there's still some what if value to them. Next offseason is going to be frantic. Like, next offseason is going to be fun because there's going to be a lot of moves. Yeah, we're really going to see, okay, this is the team now that you're starting to push the chips into the middle with, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas this year, and I hate to say it, Wild fans, and you don't want to hear it, even though all you smart Wild fans out there know this next year is not going to be anything special. This is another, we got to get through this year. We have to get through this season. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to be a fun year or competitive year. I mean, if the Wild stay healthy, they are a competitive team. They have one of the best players in the world in Kaprizov. They have a developing, Rossi. Ek is just phenomenal to watch. Boldy's going to score another 30. Like, it's going to be, obviously, a fun season. But the expectations should be set at, this is one of those years where we have to get through before they take that next step and have an opportunity to make that next step with some of the players that are coming in, Danilo Yurov being one of them. It could very well end up the exact same now. Points injuries aside, but yeah, like points wise, getting into the playoffs. Yeah, But there are a ton of different ways that you can still pull positives from that type of a season, and the Wild's positives are all going to be tied to these young players.
I thought you were going to say all going to be tied to getting rid of Freddie Gaudreau.
Well,
that too.
You can also use that answer.
That too. Honestly, if they get rid of him this year, that's my Stanley Cup for the Wild.
I think
for this season anyway.
Here's what I'll say on some of these guys. On the Marcus Johansson front, if he plays in like a, hey, this is a contract year for me, and improves his performance, and the Wild are not in a position to buy at the trade deadline, maybe you find a contender that wants some help from a speed and a scoring perspective, and you can recoup a pick for him. I think if Freddie Gaudreau doesn't show signs of life, he will be dealt.
Dude, yeah, Joe, like everyone, and I know people are gonna like go nuts on this. Like, I didn't hate on Johansson as much as everybody did this year. Like, he had 30 points. It is what it is. I know there were some higher expectations, but look at him throughout his season or throughout his career. This is what he is, bro. This is what he is, and this is what he's always been. He's always been around 30 points. Now, sometimes in less games, I get it. He only really had that elevated game when he played in Washington and got easy matchups and, was on that third pairing where like the second and first line were, the Ovechkin and Backstrom, right? So again, he didn't have a good year, but like some people are like comparing his year to like that of a Gaudreau, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's still a dance partner for him, especially because he's only 33 still. He's not like completely washed just yet. And like you said, he can still fucking skate. There's still a speed factor to his game. He
left me wanting more almost every time I saw him play. That's the frustrating part. Whether or not he's capable of giving that is one thing, but 43 games with one or fewer shots, like that doesn't go away.
No, but again, he was never a pure goal scorer. Like, he was more of that, like, he needs someone else on his line. Like Zuccarello, right?
If he played on the third line, we're not having this conversation.
No.
But the fact that he continued to play second line minutes, that's why it's an issue. Because that was a spot that they needed more and they didn't get it. If he played third line pretty much all season and did this, it doesn't even get mentioned.
Again, I'm not trying to defend his game. Like 100% he needed to do more, especially when they're giving him that role. But at the same time, it's like, okay, coaches, like, he ain't doing it. Why is he still there? Right.
Move him out.
And we know the answer. There was nobody else. Right. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we 100% should be and can be critical of his play. But like, people were putting him on the same level as Gaudreau. And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. He at least produced a little bit. And the fact that he still has that 30 points, that number there is still going to be enticing for some teams if he can at least keep that and or elevate it next season. Whereas you can't move Gaudreau in that contract. Whereas you can move a last year Marcus Johansson contract for relatively cheap.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, let's get back. Well, we'll come bookmark it. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it next year. But again, like, he's one of those guys that, like, I'm confident that they can move.
Yeah.
Even if it's for just like a little sum. Because like at that point, it's just, okay, he's not helping us make the playoffs. We're not making the playoffs. Or even if we do, it's like, he's not going to be that guy like he was when we acquired him at the trade deadline. Because that was just like sparks there. So I don't know. Again, the only reason why I'm like going to bat for him a little bit here is because people were saying that he was as bad or worse than Freddie Gaudreau this year. And I'm just like, that is incorrect. That is wrong. Because Freddie Gaudreau was awful.
Not great.
Yeah. All right, let's move to a little free agent talk here. Now, there's a list of like 50, and I'm no joke, 50 notable and solid UFAs that are ready for a contract. Now, a good chunk of them, hell, even like 25 to 30% of them might re-sign with their team. But Seth, I'm just going to we got 30 of them. We're going to speed through them, but I'm going to give you a name. You can tell me if you have a hunch or have an opinion on where they will sign, 100% you can add that to your answer. But I'm going to give you a name, and I want you to tell me what their AAV will be next year. Let's start with Sam Reinhart. I got $10 million. What say you?
10 and a half. I think he's just a lock for double digits.
And I think Florida somehow finds a way to keep him.
Yeah. Florida could not. It'll take away a lot of their quality depth, but Florida they would not be able to stomach losing that type of scoring after a cup season. So yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Jake Gensel, I got him at 8.5. I thought it would be Carolina. I still am going to hold out and say it's going to be Carolina, and I hope it is because that would be hilarious for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I'm going to say Jake Gensel, 8.5 mil AAV.
That would be hilarious for them to have thrown a third-round pick away for nothing.
I've seen it happen before, dude. I've seen it happen before. Adam Fox didn't sign with Carolina, and Calgary traded his rights to them. No, different situation coming out of college, but like I've just seen examples of this before.
I'll say 9.
All right. Steve Stamkos. I got him $8 million, and it's fucking Vancouver, baby. 8 mil AAV for 3 years. Let's go. Pettersson needs a winger.
3 years, 26 mil, Nashville.
Oh. Jonathan Marchessault. I don't have a team, but I got him 8 mil.
Yeah, 8 feels good here. He's got the Vegas pedigree. And it may not be a long-term deal, but 42 goals. He's going to get a high. He's going to get a high AAV.
Elias Lindholm. I have him at 6.5.
I'll say 5.5 here.
Okay, he made 4.5 before, just for context.
Yeah, a little bit of a bump.
Matt Duchene, coming off a shorter contract, but over $8 million. I think he doesn't sign a long-term extension. I still think his AV is 8.
Yeah. I think this could be like 2 years, 17 mil, something like that. It's going to be in that 8 range again. Tyler
Bertuzzi, I have him at 5.5.
Yeah, that's right where he was this past season, right? 5.5. That feels right.
Brett Pesce, I got him at a solid 5 mil. Not a point-getting defenseman, but a solid defenseman who was making a little bit less than that.
Mark me down for 5 too.
We're on the same page here so far for the most part. Tyler Toffoli, 33, but still producing. Still 30 goal scorer. I got him at 6. I got him at 6 mil.
I'm going to say 7.
Nice.
Somebody will up it.
Which, hey, you're getting 25 to 35 goals in the bank. So those don't come cheap. No. Brady Shea, I got him with a bump. I got him at 7.5 AAV. Dude, he is sick.
I really like that. That feels like a great way for him to get rewarded for just a solid season.
Yeah. Chandler Stevenson. This is an interesting one because he was making under $3 million. And he's done nothing but produce and be just an amazing middle six type player who can play in that elevated role when needed. I think he's going to get $6 million AAV on this next contract.
A face-off merchant.
Yeah.
And something that could be really valuable for a lot of different teams. Put me for 6.
Tara Vinen getting a little bump as well. I got him at $6 million too.
Yeah. 6 feels good.
He was under 5. I thought he made more than that. Yeah. Vladimir Tarasenko coming off his 2nd Stanley Cup. I got him at $6 million, but not a long-term deal. 6 million AAV.
1 year, somebody is going to give him 8.
Oh, what a beauty. What a beauty. Jake DeBrusk didn't have a good season. Still only 27 years of age. I don't think he signs a long-term deal anywhere, but I do think he gets anywhere between 5 and 6 on this next one.
He gets a 1 year prove it, change of scenery deal before, because then you can go into free agency at 28. You can still get a 4 or 5 year deal.
So you could even get a fucking 7-year deal with that if you absolutely like double your numbers almost and show that no, this was a mulligan year with not the right atmosphere.
1 year, 6 mil, prove it, some incentives.
All right. Shane Gostisbehere, who had a hell of a season, just shy of 60 points. And we know what he is. He's not a defensive defenseman. He is a power play specialist. And again, those don't come cheap either. I got him making, man, I could see him making $7 million AAV from the season that he put up. I mean, Hronek in Vancouver put up like friggin' 40 some points, and he got that big, like he got a huge deal, term and a high AAV. I think Shane Gostisbehere, again, length of the contract aside, I think his AAV next year will be $7 million.
I'm gonna say 5.5 because I think he goes to a playoff contender. Somebody that can.
He's gonna have to get term then because no agent's gonna accept that when he put up almost 60 points as a defenseman. Somebody
that can solidify a power play. Yeah, he's not gonna give you a ton on the defensive side, but the offensive work still speaks for itself.
Matt Roy, a good shutdown player. I got him at $4 million.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll say 5. I'm gonna Price is Right this. I'll say 5.
Someone's gonna pay that big money, eh? I like
Somebody's
that.
Got to.
Patrick Kane. Hey, he was almost point per game this year.
Yes, he was.
Started halfway through the season. He's gonna make $5 million.
Easy.
Yeah, he made 2.7 this year or something like that to come in for a 1-year show me deal. Let's see if you're still good after injuries and surgeries and whatnot. Yeah, he's gonna make $5 million.
So here's how I see this playing out. Is Detroit, they cleared all this money. They're making a full run at Stamkos. If they don't get him, they're gonna make sure that they keep Patrick Kane for sure. So that could push him to 6 or 7.
I like it. Max Domi. $4 million. This guy's so up and down. Some years he's great. Some years he's awful. Some games he's good. Some games he's awful. The skill is there. The tenacity is there. But he's been with so many different teams now. I think $4 million AAV is fair for him at this point.
Give him a 4x4 full trade protection. Not here. Elsewhere.
Anthony Mantha. He's going to make less than what he made on his last contract. But I think $5 million is still fair for what Anthony Mantha brings.
5 solid. He's a good player. He would add some nice veteran tenacity to teams that are kind of on the up and up.
Yeah. And he's still relatively young, right?
Yeah, 29. He's still got some good years in front of him.
Speaking of someone who's not young and who's getting towards the end of his career, but still quite skilled, just on a horrendous team, Tyler Johnson. Part of the original triplets to come out of Tampa. I got him at $3 million if a team wants to take a chance on him.
Yeah, this is going to be 3.5.
He did not have a good year.
No, one year deal. That plus minus it's hideous.
All right, here's a big one. Jeff Skinner, who is proven to have no defense, but incredible offense, and may not be the fastest skater, but he's a very, very talented skater, very elusive, and has a hell of a shot. He's a finisher. He's a finisher who can get to those spots where he can score goals, and that's going to cost a team $6 million, in my opinion.
Can we just place him on the Vegas Golden Knights roster?
I think that's going to be the spot.
I think I saw that's where Hoppy has him predicted to go, and I could not agree more. Like it just feels like Vegas, the other team that I thought maybe, especially if Duchesne leaves, like Dallas might come knocking.
Honestly, that's a good spot for him as well. I will never count the Colorado Avalanche out because it seems like they just take players like this and they just turn them into monsters. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think there's a defensive bone in his body, but he's proven that he can score goals. And I mean, in his rookie season, he got 60 points, 30 goals, 30 assists. Like the guy's sick, man. I know he's far from a rookie now, but like he's always produced, even if his defense lacks.
1 year, $5-6 mil. Get back on track type deal.
Matt Murray, goaltender Matt Murray, Stanley Cup champion Matt Murray. Didn't work out with Toronto. Hasn't really worked out in Canadian markets. Let's be perfectly honest. No. I still think there's a team that might throw like $3.5-4 million at him as an AAV.
Backup role, 1 year, $2 mil.
I mean, that's probably more realistic. How about Adam Henrique?
Ooh. Good year overall, and had a couple of clutch goals for Edmonton in the postseason. Feels like I'll say 4.5.
Okay, I had him at 4, so that's around the range that I had him as well. Poor Nate Schmidt getting bought out of that. Honestly, an overpayment at this point of his career. He's still an incredible skater, but he's not the Nate Schmidt that I remember in Washington. He's not the Nate Schmidt that was on those amazing Vegas teams. Where do you have Nate Schmidt? I have him 3 at most.
I said 3.
Yeah.
1 year, $3 million.
Jason Zucker. Again, not the best year for him either. Still, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if he's healthy, he's still a solid top 6 player, right? He's a second line player through and through. And if you have him on the third line, that is amazing because he's getting some good matchups. I think 3.5, 4, and I think a team's getting a deal on him at 3.5. But I feel like that might get it done based on his last couple seasons and just not having a lot of puck luck and just on or off the ice.
He'd be fun in Utah, but I don't know that he'd necessarily go that route. But yeah, this will be a 1-year deal, probably a different team than he has previously played with. But he can give him some nice production.
Your favorite player, David Perron.
4.5, 4 years, full no trade. It has already been signed.
Dude, I know you're not a fan of David Perron, but I fucking love David Perron. I can see him getting $4 million. I know he's 36 years of age, but he put up 47 points last year, man. Like, the guy is not, I mean, he's slowing down a little bit skating wise. And I know he had a little bit of a down year goals wise with 17, but 47 points at 36 years of age, like, it's not going to be a long-term deal, but that's worth $4.5 million in my opinion, still AAV. Just not with the Wild. I know that.
Yeah. I don't know. Is he a good player? Yes. Are his best days behind him? Yes. And that would be enough. That would be enough for me to just say, yeah, I'd
rather throw $4 million at him than friggin' some of these guys, honestly, because it's a safer bet than like Max Domi. It's a safer bet, maybe even over that of an Anthony Mantha, of course, over Tyler Johnson, right?
If he could get you around 20 goals and stay relatively healthy, the thing I worry about is with these guys as they get higher up in age, is you deal with the injuries. And if they're going to sign him for a 1 or a 2-year deal and he's going to miss 40 games this year, that I pass.
Yeah. Well, he played 76 games this year and played all 82 last year. So it's not like he's been a Band-Aid recently, but again, yeah, it is a chance. You are taking a chance when you sign a player who's a little bit older for sure. We got a few more to get through here. Again, we're not going through all like the top 50, but I highlighted 30. Chris Tanev, whose rights were involved in a trade recently as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs acquired his rights, and they gave up a depth player in Max Ellis and a 7th round pick in 2026. How much money do you think Toronto's going to throw Chris Tanev's way? Who's just a solid shutdown player and a shot block machine.
Just because I want the chaos, they're going to give him an 8-year deal. 9.5.
Dude, what?
Yeah.
What are you smoking? I can't see anything more than 4.5. And honestly, he's worth that at this. Like, and Chris Tanev's my guy, dude. Long time.
They have been so starved for defense for years.
You know, then he might be able to get over 5 then, just because like his agent just might be like, you need us more than we need you. We're going to get money anywhere else. Vancouver clearly wants him to come home. There's so many options. Why. He's played in Canadian markets before, and the pressure doesn't get to him. The fact that his ankles are not completely shattered with all the pucks that he blocks is absolutely insane. But this is his last money contract, and if he can secure the bag with the Leafs, I'll be happy for him. Even though it makes me sick that like Chris Tam's going to be on the Leafs. But yeah, 4.55 mil is what I think he'll get. But oh my god, if he can get more, then like good for him, man. And I'm laughing at the Leafs.
I am holding steady to 9.5.
Jesus Christ! All right, Jack Roslovic. This is an interesting one because he had a really good year as well, and he's had a solid few years.
Yeah, this is intriguing because you're always going to have these teams that go big, spend heavy on free agency, but then there are solid players kind of waiting in the wings to kind of reap the benefits after all the big names are gone. Put me down for 4.
Okay, see, I'm a lot more high on him. He's only 27. I know last year only 23 points in 40 games with Columbus, but it was fucking Columbus. Enough said.
Great.
Acquired at the deadline by the Rangers. Only played 19 games with them. Only had 8 points, but we see that sometimes, right? Like, look, Eric Staal was acquired by the Rangers at the deadline. He didn't do shit with the Rangers, comes over to Minnesota, puts up 40 goals. Right now, am I saying Jack Roslovic's going to do that? No, but at 27 years of age, he's still going to be a top player out there, man. I think he's going to get $6 million. Now, if he had a better year, like if he was point per game in Columbus before he moved and then had like a little bit of a down year or the remainder of the year that wasn't great with the Rangers, then I could see him even probably getting more money, to be perfectly honest. But I think 6 is fair, and I think his agent might be able to swing that. Nikita Zadorov. The Canucks gave him a fair offer of north of 4.5 AAV, and he turned with some term, and he turned it down. So that leads me to believe like he's not accepting anything less than 5.
Yeah, 5, but somewhere between 5 and 6. I'll just split the difference and say 5.5 will be the starting point, but somebody might get desperate and say, here's 7.
Do I think he's worth 7? No, but vibes per 60, give him all the money in the world.
Off the charts.
And last but not least, one of the most underrated skaters, but that doesn't necessarily translate to any sort of offense at all. TJ Brody on the back end. I think 3.5.
Yeah.
He had 30 points this year.
If he could, I mean, 1 goal in 78 games, but like you said, great skater. Yeah, 3.5. He's
a defenseman, right? So I mean, obviously won a few goals, but like the fact that he was still involved in offense, he's more of a first or second. Like he doesn't join the rush, but he's good. His gap control is good, right? He's not necessarily the biggest guy, but his skating's incredible, especially skating backwards. He's one of those kind of like Brodin that like he can not necessarily shut down the McDavids, but he can keep up with them as a defenseman, fucking skating backwards. Not all the time, but he's one of the few, right? Now, is he getting older? Yes. He's 34, but I think he could sign, a couple years or a 3-year deal, and someone will pay him $3.5 million for his services. Because again, last year it wasn't a steep decline. If anything, it was a better year than his full 82 game season in 2022 or 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
26 points this year, but still.
It's the consistency.
Yeah. And he's always been kind of in his prime, a 40-year guy, but 25 to 34 or 25 to 30 point, range. If you get that from Brody, then you're happy. And he's only had a career high of 11 goals. Then after that, it was like 6, 4, 9, but those were when Calgary was actually a good team.
Decent.
Yeah. So anyways, those are my top 30 UFAs in the draft. As you guys are listening to this in the morning, let us know in the comments which ones you agreed with and which ones that were way off in our projections. Anyways, the last thing I want to go over here, Seth, is some of these trades. And we've gone over a few of them just by proxy, talking about UFA, talking about the Minnesota Wild draft, but we've had some pretty major trades in the last 24 to 48 hours. Let's start with the biggest one. Utah acquiring Mikhail Sergachev from the Tampa Bay Lightnings. They give up J.J. Moser, Connor Geekie, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2024 seventh-round pick. Talk us through this trade. What do you like about it?
It's interesting because Utah went into the start of day 2 of the NHL draft with no defensemen on roster, like officially. I mean, they had some restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents, but they didn't have anybody locked in officially. And I really like the core that they were able to put together here in short order. I mean, Sergachev has never been like, he was hurt this past year, only played 34 games, but he's been between 30 and 60 points.
He's only 26 too.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing.
Young, man. He's so young.
And this is just price of doing business for the Tampa Bay Lightning, is that they have so many players locked in. And obviously, likely going to lose Steven Stamkos. Now, depending on if Jake Gensel signs there or not, you're replacing him as best you can. But this is how teams with championship pedigree, this is what they fight on almost a yearly basis, is teams trying to come in and steal pieces away from them. I thought it was a great ad for Utah, and as kind of a backbone guy for their defense, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, dude, it's huge. And honestly, I think the trade is perfectly fair. Connor Geekie projected to be very, very good, right? He went 11th overall in 2022, had a tremendous year in Wenatchee and the Swift Current Broncos. Like he absolutely torched in the WHL this year as a 20-year-old, and I cannot wait to see him play more pro. He played 2 games with the Tucson Roadrunners, didn't register a point, but he played 2 pro games this year, coming off a monster season in junior. And JJ Moser, man, he's good. Yeah. He's good. He's a defenseman, played pretty much 2 full years with Arizona Coyotes, 82 games last year, 80 this year, put up 31 points last year, 26 points this year on a god-awful team. Dude, Tampa, they got value for this, and they got some futures, because he's only 24, Connor Geekie 20. This is a very good move for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and equally, like, there's no winner in this one. I think this is awesome for Utah, getting an absolute stud on the back end, the one that Montreal gave up way too early in their early in his development. And I mean, he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Like I said, anywhere between 40 and 60 points. I absolutely love Mikhail Sergachev. He's an incredible skater. Obviously riddled by injuries this year, but hasn't faced too many injuries throughout his year. Like 2020, 2021, he was kind of banged up. But other than that, he's only missed a handful of games throughout the season, playing over or 70 and above. Which again, in a grueling 82-game season, that's not bad, especially as a defenseman who played as much as he did for the Lightning. So love this trade for both of them, man. Love this trade for both of them.
Yeah, and then I mean, you look at the players that Utah added in quick order to beef out that decor: 24, 25, 26, 27. Like that's not bad for constructing a decor on the fly.
No, and you alluded to it there. They traded a 2nd round pick in 2024 and a 2nd round pick in 2025 to the New Jersey Devils for John Marino and a 2024 5th round pick. Again, a really good trade for both parties.
Yeah, like you look at a guy in Marino who, 75 games this past year and is still on the young side at 27. So he's still somebody that can give you some solid minutes. And a 2nd round pick is it's not nothing, but this is how Arizona was going to be doing this even before they moved to Utah. They have an insane amount of draft capital over these next few seasons. And so they are in perfect position to, if they have a spot on the roster they need to go fill, as they did here, just free up a couple of those picks and go get a guy.
Yeah, and I love it because they want to be competitive in their first year in Utah. None of this purgatory playing out of a fucking university rink anymore. Like, those days are over. They were moved for a reason, and that reason is to now start winning hockey games, sell tickets, and be a profitable NHL franchise.
Yeah, like you have a new fan base to try to appeal to. Just go do it. Yeah.
Another trade from the Tampa Bay Lightning, as they're clearing cap space set to either re-sign Stamkos or make a splash elsewhere. They gave up Tanner Gianot to the Los Angeles Kings for a 4th-round pick in 2024 and a 2nd-round pick in 2025. 27 years of age is Tanner Gianot. Like he's a depth guy. He's a 4th liner, but plays tough. Not necessarily the quickest, but he's been good for the Tampa Bay Lightning in that role.
He's always going to be remembered for acquiring one of the most wild returns in a trade of all times, getting a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th. Tampa Bay sent that to Nashville in exchange for him. So obviously didn't quite get that back in return. So that was...
They believed that 41-point season was going to happen again. Because, I mean, that year was amazing. 24 goals, 130 penalty minutes. Like, he was that all-around power forward that every GM just salivates over. And then the next year in 56 games, just played power, but not really the forward game. Just kind of a power game.
you gotta be careful of those outlier seasons.
I do like the way he plays. Don't get me wrong. He's a big Sasky boy who mucks it up. But yeah, there's some skill there if he's around the right guys. Maybe the LA Kings have... clearly, there's interest from the LA Kings to slot him in a spot, maybe with some of their young talent, or maybe just to keep the ice clear for that of a Fiala if he does have to move up into, that second line at times.
Yeah, I mean, 24 goals in 2021, 2022. He has 13 cents.
Well, when you look in junior, like the skill was there. He had 40. He had a 40 goal season.
He had a 40 season.
Yeah, he's just best when he can play more of a shutdown game. If he's shutting down top lines, or if he's surrounded by some other skill guys where he can clear space or get them the puck, he's not going to be the guy who is the finisher. And that was proven in Tampa when he had guys around him who could have set him up, right? But I don't hate this for the Kings. I don't hate this for the Kings either. And they didn't give up a lot for him at all. They didn't give up like Tampa's, they like you said, their acquisition cost was absolutely insane. And they're moving on from him now. Some more news here, which this one was interesting. This one was interesting. I haven't talked to Hoppy about this one yet, but Kevin Hayes to the Pittsburgh Penguins and a 2025 2nd-round pick from the St. Louis Blues for future consideration. So the Blues were done with Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, I was
paid to get him out of town.
That this is, it was a little bit of a head scratcher when they initially acquired him. Not that he didn't bring a ton of skill, but it just led to such a strong reaction. It just didn't really work out. 13 goals, 29 points in 79 games for the Blues, and
not a bad season, but it's just like you expect more from Kevin Hayes, especially coming off a 54-point season and two seasons prior where he was 31 and 55, 31 and 48, right? Like if he played a full season, those would have been monster years, especially with what he brings. But he is slowing down. The skill's still there. I mean, this is just so textbook Pittsburgh, and the fact that like St. Louis, who are probably going to go on and make a big acquisition as well here as they're clearing up, that cap space of Kevin Hayes, who has one more year left on that big deal that he was signed to. This is just textbook Pittsburgh Penguins. If he can't get his shit together here, then he really is done. And he's 32 years of age. I don't think he's done by any means. But let's see if he can bounce back from an offensive side here in Pittsburgh with again, a team that's closer to a rebuild than not, but a team that still has a lot of skill, and he could definitely jump in and fill one of their holes.
Yeah, it's just a take a chance on me kind of a thing. You know,
well,
maybe
Pittsburgh got a second round pick to take him on. So like, let's go.
Yeah,
they didn't give up anything. Yeah, they didn't give up anything. Now they might have to make a trade with St. Louis down the road because St. Louis is gonna be like, remember when I scratched your back there? But
hey,
let's be honest, just future considerations. I mean, this is honestly a video or a segment idea that it will take some time for us to do some research. But like, I'm very curious to see how many of these future consideration deals have actually like followed through, right? Where like the team, whereas like, be it like 2-3 years down the road where it's like, oh, that was too good to be true. That must have been because this team, you know, had a handshake deal down the road of like, look, you're helping me out now, I need your help down the road sort of thing. And maybe there's no way to find that data, but it's something that I'm actually curious now. I want to do a deep dive into it eventually.
Well, there was Vegas had one recently where that was to the Hurricanes, wasn't it? For who am I thinking of? Wasn't Max Pacioretty involved in just a straight up like, here you can have him, we just need the cap space deal? Like before last season?
I believe so.
Why can't
I don't know the return off the top of my head. I'm not gonna lie, but I do know he wasn't traded for anything of substance. But yeah, anyways, like I said, it'd be interesting to see if like there's even any data out there. If someone else has like highlighted some of like, no, this move was made because 3 years ago or 2 years ago there's a future considerations and the chickens have come home to roost. But anyways, another notable trade here. Washington has their goalies. They got Minnesota boy Charlie Lindgren, and now they have Logan Thompson from the Vegas Golden Knights to back them up. Dude, I really like this goalie tandem in Washington now. They had to give up a 3rd round pick in 2024 and a 3rd round pick in 2025. So Washington kind of just saying like, look, Darcy Kemper didn't work out with Charlie Lindgren last year. We have Logan Thompson, who's still relatively young, 27 years of age, and had a good season. Almost 91 save percentage, 2.7 goals against average. And he's had some monster years with Vegas as well as like pretty much their starter since, you know, since the Leonard saga had ended.
Yeah. And this is, I think, a situation of Vegas, you know, Aiden Hill got them to the Stanley Cup final, got them the win. This past year, he battled injuries. And I think, if he is healthy, this just shows that this is the route that Vegas wants to go, in just having him be the guy. Thompson was in that shadow a little bit, and so now he gets an opportunity to really battle it out with Lindgren. And if you're Washington, I think you feel, like you said, I think you feel pretty good about this combo. And combined, they're making less than $2 million this season.
Dude, how like and that's a damn good tandem.
Yeah.
So I'm very impressed with Washington's goalie tandem. Now let's see what the fuck else they do and how they show on the ice, because they had no business being in the playoffs, and that was exposed right away.
Yeah, that did not take long for that to flip on its head.
But clearly identified that, like, and look, if we have the goaltending and Ovi's even, you know, a shadow of what he was, like, we could still maybe be there, because it will make it hard for people to score on us.
Yeah.
We might not score. It might be only Ovechkin who's scoring, and, you know, maybe Dubois a little bit, but no, there's not going to be pucks getting through.
No, it'll be 1-0, 2-1 games all season.
Great for their fan base. You're going to sell so many tickets. Well, I mean, they are, because Ovi's still there. Last notable one that I want to get into here, and I love this trade as well. Vegas continuing to be busy. They give up Paul Cotter and a 2025 3rd round pick to the New Jersey Devils for Alexander Holtz, who's a right winger, and young goaltender Akira Schmid. I really like this trade for both parties. Again, coming from Vegas, going to New Jersey, you have Paul Cotter, who's 24 years old. He's played 2 full seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights. Last year, 25 points in 76 games. The year before, 18 points in 55 games. He's more of a bottom pairing guy with some offensive ability, and he actually looked really, really good. And he's played everywhere. He's played college hockey. He's played in the OHL. He's played in the USHL. He's played 3 years AHL. So like he has played in every style of hockey, every type of league in his development, looked good in the AHL, and so far has carved out a great role for himself in the National Hockey League, given that he was a 4th-round pick in 2018.
Yeah, and it's just some interesting roster tweaking by the New Jersey Devils now that they've got Sheldon Keefe in there to lead the show. Obviously, you go get Jacob Markstrom, and he's going to be your number 1 guy. You've still got Jake Allen on the roster, so your goalie room's pretty set. And so it's just an opportunity here to maybe give a guy an opportunity to factor into the equation elsewhere.
Yeah, because Akira Schmid, he's played a handful of games with the New Jersey Devils over 3 years. He's kind of gone up and down, but last year playing 19 games, put up decent numbers. But he's only 24, and again, in goalie years, like he's still very much like a 24-year-old goalie is like a 19 to 20-year-old player. Like, you know, they take longer to marinate unless they're like the best of the best. People forget that like Demko didn't reach the Canucks even until like 23 as well, right? So and he was slated as like a top goalie even in his draft year sort of thing. And Alexander Holtz, a young a winger who does have offensive ability. He had 16 goals this year, 28 points. I mean, the guy can score goals. And at 22 years of age, former 7th overall pick in 2020. This is exactly what you said, Seth. This is a roster tweak from both teams. And I like it. I like it. You're getting a young goalie and a young goal scorer in Vegas that you don't have to pay either of them much at all. And, you know, both could still develop in the minors if needed this year. And for the New Jersey Devils, you're getting some sandpaper in Paul Cotter, who does have some skill as well, despite not being the fastest guy out there.
It feels very much like a Vegas move to make, is we're going to take a chance on a guy. It might not be somebody that we keep around long-term, but if they show signs and they don't necessarily fit into our long-term plans, we'll just trade them to somebody else.
Yeah, no, for sure. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We covered a lot this show. We covered a little bit of the draft. We covered a little bit of free agency. We covered some trades that went down in the last 24 to 48 hours. Man, between UFC 303 and the NHL draft, like I'm almost sportsed out, and we still have a whole day of free agency tomorrow. We have the frenzy. We're at the time of this recording tomorrow. You guys are listening to this morning, and the frenzy has begun. Let's just say 4th of July festivities couldn't come any sooner. It's going to be nice just to be able to put the mic down for a little bit and just chill and digest it all, let the dust settle, and then, you know, come back with a bunch of fun, you know, Dark Days of Summer episodes, which I know some of the listeners might roll their eyes at us, but for content creators, this can be some of the more fun times to create content, because you don't necessarily just have to report, spin, react. You can just create. Mm-hmm. And those are always some fun times for me anyways, as someone who creates YouTube content and someone who's doesn't necessarily have to cover all the prospects like Spoke Z and Hoppy on Judd's Buds. Someone doesn't have to be on the Wild's beat like Joe Smith, right? I kind of do a little bit of everything, the broad stroke of the National Hockey League. And this is going to be a fun part of the summer where I can actually just create and be a little bit more, I guess, artistic in that sense. So I know some of you might be rolling your eyes and being like, well, this is actually the time where I just set down the headphones, Isha. I don't even listen to your show. But I encourage you guys to listen, as we'll be doing a lot more beer-focused content this summer as well.
We like to call it at-large.
At-large.
Coverage.
There you go.
At-large coverage.
Speaking of at-large coverage, what do you have at-large coming this weekend next, Seth?
A lot. We're going to be recapping every pick that the Minnesota Wild made here in the draft, including the thing that I think I'm most intrigued to dive into is, like, what does this mean for everybody else? Like, we got all these prospects into the system. Where do they slot in? What's the timetable? What are we looking at with all of them? Because I'm here to tell you, I think Zeev Boyum has one of the shortest timetables of anybody, including the players at Iowa. And so we'll talk about that. we'll set the scene a little bit for free agency. And I think what I'm going to be doing between now and say the end of the month of July is just some organizational depth rankings. Kind of, it's kind of house cleaning stuff, but it is nice to get a little bit of a look at what we have, and most importantly, coming up at the end of next season, what we need. So we'll be doing some of that. We'll be doing some of that as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll have one more big day, and then Tuesday. I mean, look at Canada Day, free agency, the free agent frenzy. That's the last big sort of event this summer. Obviously, like day 2, we'll see some contracts trickle in, but then the general managers and front office, they need a break as well. So that's when things kind of go dark. We will still continue to bring you guys content. Again, it might be on a little bit more of the creative side in the next couple of weeks. Well, starting in the next couple of weeks. I know definitely on the Sota Pod it will be, but we also have some other things planned for you guys as well. So though it might not be just 100% Wild news focus, because look, guys, we can't just create news out of thin air. We're still going to continue to bring you guys content this summer. Same schedule. Don't you worry. And yeah, so we encourage you guys to continue to listen, and we'll be even more interactive with you guys as well. If there's some things that you guys want us to open the vault and talk about from this last year or in years past, if there's just international hockey news and stories from, again, outside of North America in regards to this sport, you guys let us know as well. We love your feedback. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go check out Locked On Wild for all my appearances and Seth's daily shows as well. Happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July weekend. Happy Canada Day to my Canadian friends, and happy Free Agent Frenzy Day today as well. We'll definitely be recapping that on next week's episode. Seth, as always, thank you for everything, my man. Have a great week yourself, and I will see you on our collaboration episode of Locked On Wild this week.
Yes, sir. Just got to figure out what we're doing, but we'll get it.
We'll get it. We always do. That is it. That is it for the show. Thank you so much, Seth. Thanks to all of our great fans, both on the Locked On side and the Sota Pod. Again, almost 6 hours of draft coverage on day 1. We had like 2 hours of draft coverage on day 2. So big shout out to Hoppy for producing the show. Big shout out to Z for hosting. And big shout out to you guys, the watchers, the listeners, the supporters of this show. We really appreciate you guys. And we still have content coming out this week. We will have content continuing to come out this summer, even when we get into the dark days. So thank you all so much. It was a lot of fun. And the Wild had another good draft. This was a hefty episode. We'll get back to reviewing some beer, and we'll probably lean on that portion of the show a little bit more for the rest of the summer, given that hockey news is probably going to be thinner. But anyways, thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for all the support that you show this channel, for all the support that you show this podcast. We're going to continue pumping out content for you guys all damn summer. Before we wrap up here, just want to give a big shout out to our friends at Better Edge. Guys, if you have not signed up for Better Edge yet, go do so. Go to betteredge.com/SotaPod to get a $20 signing bonus on us throughout the season coming up here in the fall. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be hosting Wild Game Day pick'ems, various brackets for certain hockey tournaments, World Junior, high school hockey brackets, NCAA, and more. So follow either Hoppy or myself on Better Edge if you're there. Check out all the contests we do for the Sota Pod. But if you aren't even primed yet with the app, check it out, betteredge.com/SotaPod. Claim your $20 signing bonus, play around with the app, win some money, and be ready for the season when we start hosting all of these contests. It's a free platform with legal betting in the state of Minnesota, among 44 other states. And if you're loving the app right now and want to get more out of it, go check out Better Edge Premium, as premium players have access to free entry to premium pick'em contests, order grades, advanced order filterings, API access, and more. More details at betteredge.com/premium. But if you haven't already checked out the app, A, what are you doing with your life? And B, go to betteredge.com/SotaPod and get $20 to play around with on us. Better Edge, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. Like I said, that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate all your guys' support in this huge last few weeks of the season. Stanley Cup Finals, NHL Draft, and free agent frenzy as you're listening here today. We will be back again next week, Seth and myself. We'll have more content pumping out this week. Happy 4th of July. Stay safe. Happy Canada Day to my Canadian listeners. Signing off, I'm Isha alongside Seth Toupal. This has been the Sota Pod presented by Better Edge, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.